Welcome inside a live edition of the Scorers Table. Brian Haenchen, Danny Rago, Josh Sabol just popped in. Courtney Delks will be here in a minute. We're going to have the whole gang back together. How's everybody doing?
We're great, man.
Pretty good. Just getting ready for these games.
This is, I think this is like one of our last two shows together with everybody. We're going to have our picks tomorrow, and it'll be the last one for the season. I'm hoping we'll be back together for Miss Basketball when it comes time, but it's a sad day for me. You know, it's bittersweet, Josh.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I think we were talking about this like in a group text. I think, back when we started doing this in October, we didn't really know what it was going to be like or what was going to look like. And I think it just went beyond everyone's expectations. But most importantly, we just had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I should probably get to the guest list because we have a doozy for y'all today. Marquette Catholic coach Katie Collignon is going to join us here in about 4 to 5 minutes. Lanesville coach Angie Hinton shortly after that. Both coaches will be coaching Saturday morning in the first state championship game of the week or of the year. Eastern Hancock coach Shari Doud, they played Brownstown Central in the semi-state last weekend, and Lapel coach Zach Newby, who took on Bishop Luers. The other side of the 3A finals will be with us. And then in the 4 o'clock hour, I'm not sure how it's going to look. It's just kind of a mishmash of everybody because those 3A teams, Norwell and Gibson Southern, have played such excellent schedules this year. Friend of the show, Stephen Thomas of Lawrence North, will be with us. They played Norwell, Gibson Southern, and obviously Lawrence Central. Valparaiso coach Candy Wilson, their team played Norwell, and they played Lake Central. And then Warren Central coach Stacy Mitchell will be with us to help talk Lawrence Central. And that's what we have for everybody. We have 3 minutes here, so I'll just ask you both quickly. Biggest surprises, biggest takeaways from semi-state weekend. Anything broad takeaways that stood out to you?
For me, it has to be Lake Central. I think we've talked about it a little bit on here about, earning respect, and I think Lake Central is one of those teams where nobody had them going this far. Everyone had all the big time teams beating them, us included. No one ever really thought they were going to make it this far, and they just kept on winning. And I think that's how you earn respect. If you want all the accolades and all the awards and you want people to talk about you, just go out and prove them wrong. And I think Lake Central's been proving them wrong all season long, especially the last couple of weeks.
Danny?
Yeah, for me, it's aside from Lawrence Central, I mean, Indianapolis isn't very well represented. I mean, I think Marquette Catholic and Lanesville and Brownstown Central and Lake Central and Marquette. I mean, it's all Norwell. It's all over the state, which I think would be. I think I'd have an additional point to that. I mean, I think the cool thing about it is, the majority of our audience is probably Indianapolis based due to the affiliation with the Indianapolis Star and your writing, Hank. But I think it gives us an opportunity to accomplish one of our goals, which was evangelizing girls basketball and all of these girls to all of these markets. So it's fun to get in here and talk about Lanesville and Marquette Catholic and Brownstown Central because we're going to get the opportunity to do that.
What's up, Courtney?
Hello, everybody.
Good to see you.
You
feel better?
Feel way better. Hopefully, people listening haven't got that bug that's going around. But if it's the way that you can lose some weight, I'm all for it.
Poor Courtney. I felt bad because we kept texting in the group. I was like, "Oh, guys, Courtney's sick. Like, I feel bad blowing up her phone during these games." And then I had to go live by myself at 3:15 because I moved it up without telling Courtney, and she was sleeping, and it was a disaster. I needed Courtney.
It all worked out. I was quarantined at home, and I could watch all kinds of basketball games, so it wasn't too bad.
That's good stuff. Well, our first guest is on the line here, Marquette Catholic coach Katie Collignon joining us. Katie's team coming off a big win, probably the best semi-state finish of the weekend Saturday night. Katie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we talked a little bit at Media Day, but how's the preparations, I guess, going for state championship week?
They're going well. Like you said, Saturday was pretty exciting. Had a real tough one there at the end. So trying to enjoy that, but also focus our sights on Saturday. So it's been pretty good so far.
I'll start off with this. If you could just talk us through that final play of the game. Like, I've seen the highlight. I talked to the girls about it. It sounds like chaos to an extent, but they were just so calm in the moment. Talking to Laniah about it, like they just cool as a cucumber, knew where it was going, and had full confidence when the girl took the shot.
Yeah, they're funny that way. So yeah, it was actually a pretty interesting sequence as we were up 5 with I think 30 seconds to go. Had a bad turnover, gave up a free throw, blackout. So really not how you want to end your semi-state championship game. But luckily had a timeout left, drew something up, didn't go as planned, but had a player there ready to step up and take a big shot. It went in, and I guess the rest is history.
So the calmness that the girls exuded, has that been something that you've noticed and seen from this group all season long?
I mean, yes, they say youth is funny. And I would say sometimes, our youth will obviously give up a 5-point lead with 30 seconds to go, but they also have this calmness to them. Like they don't really understand the moment too much yet. So they've been such a fun group to coach. And I'm so excited that they got to experience this moment that they'll probably remember forever.
Coach, could you talk about like Laniah Davis as a sophomore, like what she's meant like to you guys in your program this season?
Yeah. For sure. I mean, Laniah is special. I mean, we knew that coming in last year as a freshman. I mean, just so strong, just so explosive. So good with the ball in her hands. But her game was kind of 1 or 2 dimensional. She worked really hard in this off season in the summertime to add some more dimension to her game. And now she's just a matchup nightmare for other teams. She can score, obviously still attack the rim like she did all freshman year, but she's added a pull-up jumper. She's added the 3, and her defense just really starts our defensive set as a team. So she just provides so much energy and just calmness. And again, that Saturday, if you watched her play, she was just very impressive.
In talking to her and her teammates, it sounds like too she plays and leads kind of beyond her age. Like I think the word used was like salty. She can get salty with them sometimes if they need that little kick.
She can. She is good. I mean, she has really high standards. She's my most competitive kid. She wants to win every single moment, win every single game. And sometimes she has to tell the other ones like, hey, we're in here. We got to be going a little harder than this. So I think just her attitude and her effort just really does inspire the rest of the team. Even though she's a sophomore, she definitely plays much bigger than that.
Katie, how's it going, by the way?
It's good. How are you, Danny?
I'm doing fine. Marissa Pleasant's a freshman, right?
She is.
So to the audience, this is the kid that hits the shot and has her one shining moment and moves Marquette Catholic on. But I've kind of flown the flag for impactful freshmen, kind of throughout the year. Just talk about her progression. And, obviously it doesn't surprise you that she hit that shot, but it's also pretty outstanding that that's a kid who hasn't even completed her first varsity season hitting a shot like that. Just talk about her and her progression through the year.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we're really excited when she came in because really we have everybody back and we just had to fill a couple of missing roles. And when she stepped on the floor, that even this summer, our team elevated so much. I mean, she's just so strong. She's a good defender. She can shoot, obviously, and she attacks the basket really well. So just another kind of counterpart to the Laniah Davis show on offense. And she just has a really sense of confidence to her. Sometimes it bites her in the butt a little bit as a freshman and being overconfident. She actually had a pretty tough morning game on Saturday where she fouled out and just did not play well offensively. So to come in and have that kind of guts to still take that shot for her team just says a lot about that kid and just her fortitude and her character. So excited to have her on the crew for 4 more years because I think her ceiling's really high and she's only going to get better.
I'm always so intrigued by the culture of championship programs. So I'm just curious, inside of Marquette Catholic, what is the culture that you've built there? What are your guys' kind of foundational things that you guys stand upon as a team?
Yeah, I would say we're going to try to come in and work hard every single day. That's a big thing that I have. Or do everything, only control the controllables, energy and effort you can bring every single day. And, we haven't really played that up to the standard we are right now all season long. I always felt like we weren't giving our full effort, and that was just very disappointing to me because I knew we were talented. Luckily, at the end of the season, we kind of turned it on a bit. But I think that the girls, I think it's just believing in yourselves and controlling what you can control, having fun while you're out there, and knowing that, the basketball is such a metaphor for life. So that's kind of how my coaching style is. I'm a super confident coach, which is probably why my freshmen took that shot, but we're really green light coaches because I like to think the kids that when they're confident on the floor, they're having more fun and they usually do a better job for you. So that's just how it's going.
Well, I have a follow-up on kind of Courtney's point and talking about the culture. This will be the 3rd time that you've coached in Gainbridge. I mean, you had the Nolan sisters. And so compare and contrast those teams, but also talk about how that experience has kind of helped you as a coach and still, the confidence to make a run to get back there 3 times in 5 years is super impressive, Katie.
Thank you. Yes, it is. Again, those other teams, they were senior led. I mean, those girls came in wanting to win a state championship. That was their sole goal. So they were focused. Everything we did was to win a state championship. This team, I don't even think they even knew there was a state championship. If I'm being honest, they're just young and gritty and messy. And, they picked up a lot along the way. We don't really have any, we have a couple seniors on the roster, but they don't really hit the floor for us. So again, we're just really young. I think that my staff and I do a really good job of encouraging the girls and kind of putting things in perspective, but we have a lot of energy and we have a lot of fight to us as coaches. And I think that kind of translates to our team. So I think you'll see that a little bit when you see our style of play. We'll play really up tempo. We're going to get to your face defensively. And I think that's just them taking out our personality a little bit.
Coach, when you put the Lanesville tape on, what are some things that stand out?
I mean, they're really good. They're deep. In a 1A team, usually there's a player or two that you're like, hey, we don't have to guard that kid, but they don't have that. They have number 4 in the middle. She's a great athlete. I think her and Laniah are going to be great kind of tag teaming there, really put on a show for those 1A fans. They have a strong kid in the middle, and they have shooters around them. So they play up tempo, which I love. They're going to press. They're going to run different defenses at you. So are we. So I think it's going to be a very exciting game. I think who's ever able to handle the pressure, take the easiest and most high percentage shots is going to be the one smiling after Saturday.
I don't know, Kate. I mean, it seemed like you guys were, with the Nolan sisters, big favorites the last 2 times. All due respect to your run, Lanesville will probably enter as a pretty big favorite. Have you leaned into that this week, and have your kids kind of leaned into the underdog role? Is that something that you guys are playing up?
We have. I mean, our big slogan this whole postseason has been, why not us? Somebody has to win. Why can't it be us? So that's been kind of our fortitude the whole way. We made Marquette First Everybody shirts just because other schools tend to travel so much better than we can. I mean, Clinton Central, I think, had their whole city there, and we had about 100 fans. So kind of taking that mindset of like, it just matters who's in the room right now. And if we can just build around each other and bring our best basketball, we'll be pretty happy. So definitely taking on the underdog role. I think Lanesville, they're going back to back. I mean, I think we're the last team to go back to back. So that'll be a little more gumption, at least coming from my angle to the girls. But underdog, it's kind of neat for us. We know that no one expected for us to be here. Yes, we were talented, but we really didn't show it too much this whole season, here and there, I guess. But I think we'll just say, the ball's gonna be tipped. Why can't it be us that's hosting that trophy at the end?
One more question for you, Katie, then we'll let you get out of here. With that, having been to Gamebridge fairly recently, what's like one thing or a couple things that like kind of surprised you the first time you were there that you know what to expect coming into it this time?
I think, most high school gyms don't have that arena type feel. I mean, we were in Frankfurt down on Saturday, and it's a very cool old arena, but it still doesn't have that massive size that Gamebridge really has. So I think that's part of it. Other than that, probably just like the media timeouts and things, that the game doesn't flow as the other high school game flows. So if they can keep their minds with them, keep their mindset, know that the court is the same length, the baskets are the same height. At the end of the day, it is just basketball. We'll be just fine. So my whole goal this week will be blasting cheers and boos all practice while we're shooting free throws, trying to get that loud atmosphere and just tell the kids at the end of the day, it's just basketball. We can do this.
Awesome. That's Katie Collignon, Marquette Catholic head coach. Katie, thank you so much for stopping by, and best of luck on Saturday.
Of course. Thanks you guys for having me.
Good luck, Katie.
Coach.
Take care.
Thank you.
Oh, hey, Danny. Katie Collignon, Marquette Catholic head coach. We save that spot for Josh when somebody cuts him off and doesn't want to talk.
I'm saving my timeout. I'm not using it in the first quarter.
All I know is after listening to that lady, I feel like I gotta go work out. I'll be right back. I'm fired up.
Yeah. It's.
Oh man,
you can tell. You can tell. She's got some energy. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think, and you guys know this, but I think when you're the underdog, I think you get that little bit extra juice, because no one's expecting you to win. No one's even thinks that this is even going to be close. And I think, when you're a coach or a player, you take that personally.
Yeah. They scored 72 points in the semi-state game without an overtime. And Lanesville is only giving up 36. Like, something's got to give. Like, and she downplayed that for sure. But she's got to figure out a way to get Laniah Davis and figure out, I mean, again, we're going to have Lanesville's coach on here. I call it the amoeba zone. I'm sure nobody else does, but I watched their semi-state championship game too. And it's like save. It's impressive.
Yeah, they're impressive. Like we've said this a lot. Like they do not look like a 1A team. They look like they're a 3 or 4A team. Just like their size and their athleticism and how they move and just how strong they are. Like you're not going to get them off their drive line. Like you're not going to be able to out jump them or out rebound them. They are a big, strong, athletic team.
Did you guys have a chance to stream the end of that game? Like, did you guys know what she was talking about?
I just saw the highlights.
Okay, so they're down 5 with 27 seconds left. Like the game, the game's Marquette Catholic is down 5 with 27 seconds left. They give up a 3, so now it's a 2-point game. There was one of the reserves that threw it away on an end line inbounds, and their player gets fouled. So now she's going to the line with about 12 seconds left to try to tie the game to send it to overtime. She makes the first from Clinton Central, but misses the second, and then you heard her reference the missed free throw box out. They get a putback on that, and now they're down 1. So they go up 5 with 27 seconds left, down. And we didn't have a chance to ask her, but this is something that's unique. They got the ball to Laniah Davis when they threw the ball in, and then she dribbles the length of the floor and is in space getting to make a play, and the referees blow the whistle because the clock didn't start. So the highlight that's running right now, that you see right now, you see Pleasant hitting that 3. That was after Laniah Davis already had the basketball in quarter court in space. Katie had to reset and use that timeout, but the time had stopped. There was a dead ball, change of possession, referee timeout where the clock didn't start. It was a batty finish. One of the best semi-state games that I had honestly seen. It was awesome.
I'll tell you, just by watching that clip, Hank, can you show it one more time? Like, you never rise to the occasion. Like you sink to the level of your habits. And I can tell that this is a very well-coached basketball team, because when the girl on top right here who's about to get the ball drives, the shooter gets right in her taillights right there and knocks down the 3. Like that's something that they've coached over and over and over again. Like if your teammate drives away from you, we call it getting into the taillights of the driver. And if she's just standing there, like you don't get that shot. So that's something that just tells me as a coach that they are a very well coached team. Decision training, probably a lot of 3-on-3, and just like, those first cuts, like headlights, taillights off drives, and I can just tell like how well coached they are just on that clip alone. And that's a freshman. That's pretty impressive.
Let's credit Laniah Davis too, because I had mentioned not only did she have the basketball and live ball change of possession in space, but she also had 31 points to that point in that basketball game. And for her to take the double, realize that it's not her time and not her possession to make a pass, and she ends up getting the hockey assist on the 3, I think is impressive also, because Laniah might have just said, hey, listen, I'm going to go down, best player taking the shot when the time comes, but she trusted her teammates. So not only is it a well-coached basketball team, but they just make the right play. That was really cool.
I love it. She talked about it. She knew where she's like, I'm going to go win it now. And then the clock stoppage that you referenced. So they run it again. She hits the wall. She passes it over to her teammate. And they both said in agreement, almost simultaneously, like as soon as she kicked it out to Marissa Pleasant, they knew it was good. They knew it was over. And I think the joke that they made was obviously it had to be because nothing else was open, and that was just a play. Because if you watch the way the defense moves, that's just what's open, because they were so worried about stopping Laniah, and then the passer whose name escapes me. I apologize. It's been a day, but she pulls the defender off of Marissa, so the shot's there. And again, it's just, the confidence that they exude at that age is just, it's incredible.
I don't think it'd be interesting to see. Katie talked about how Laniah started to shoot the 3 better. She's definitely better scoring in mid-range and at the rim than she is from the 3-point line. Shoots 23% from 3. Marissa Pleasant, who hit that 3, looks like she hits them, all the time. She's a 25% 3-point shooter. So it'll be interesting to see how Laniah Davis and Marissa Pleasant and the rest of Marquette Catholic decides to attack the Lanesville zone, if they decide to shoot over it. But that's the kind of shot too, coming off of again, Marissa's one shining moment and Laniah Davis having 60 in a day at semi-state. Maybe it just carries through in confidence, and they go out and have one of those 4 for 6 from the 3-point line kind of days, regardless.
Yeah, they're definitely going to need it, because if you look at their stats, like they only shoot 22% from 3. So like you said, they're going to have to make some shots in this game, because like Lanesville, just how they defend and get after you, like you're going to have to make shots if you're going to hang with this team.
Lanesville coach Angie Hinton set to join us here hopefully soon. I know she's probably bouncing around from practice. She's going to try and dip out and give us a call. But speaking of Lanesville, got a really good outfit. They had made quick work of Jackson Dell and North Central Saturday at semistate. Jackson Dell, the number 8 team, Class A, 62-40. Then they won their second game 68-33. That was not the most lopsided game of the day. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But you guys have talked about it before. Really, really good looking operation. Hadley Crozier is having a great year. Kind of the X factor for them is Shelby Allen. She was injured 2 weeks after last year's state championship game, tore up her meniscus and her ACL. Worked her tail off to get back, came back at Christmas, and that kind of turned their season. And in talking to Angie about it, it was like once they got through that first game at Borden during the regular season, that's kind of when, like, okay, we're going to be okay. We have a chance to do something, because they'd won these games and got off to such a strong start with one of their best players unavailable.
Yeah, Shelby Allen, you mentioned her. She was a load against North Central Farmersburg. Like, she would get so deep. The one thing that I really liked about Shelby Allen was when she would post and get the touch, if she was too deep or didn't like where she was on the floor, or didn't like the matchup, or there was a dig, or there was even a double in some cases, she'd kick it back out, but she'd also repost. And then she would get it back. So a lot of times that she would catch the ball at about 8 feet, kick back out to the corner, drive her defender down, catch it at 4 feet, and then just shoot a little jump hook over them. She was a load. And what can you say about Hadley Crozier? I mean, I watched the North Central Farmersburg game. Watched a lot of Lanesville games because I'm trying to figure out how I would attack this zone. I mean, with about 4, I bookmarked it in my head in case anybody wants to go and stream it. The possession, there's a couple of possessions with about 4 minutes left in the second quarter where you can really see what I'm talking about with this zone, because Hadley Crozier they'll pick the guard. They were picking Jalen Davidson up in the full court, so they were stacking their 2-3. But when Davidson, she'd bring it up the side, and so they're treating it as if it has odd front principles. So she's bringing it up the side. It looks like a 1-3-1. But then she would make one pass. It would fall back into a 2-3. But the corners, they would run them like Jim Boeheim would run his corners at Syracuse, with really high and really wide. So just trying to figure it out. I mean, it just doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like it has consistent rules. It does seem like they just play off of what Crozier wants to do. But Josh, my question for you is this again, and I asked it at the risk of redundancy. I'm going to ask it again. When you have a stacked zone, mm-hmm. or you have a zone that doesn't have consistent rules, or you have, kind of a 1-3-1 that centers. I mean, essentially what it is a matchup zone. Okay.
Right.
What's your big talking points with your team this year? What does Katie really have to focus on with Marquette Catholic and able to be able to hurt this zone? Because that game the North Central Farmersburg game was over in the second quarter.
Yeah, well, the first thing is you can't let them get organized. Like, you got to run, and run some more. Like, you cannot allow the defense to get set, because once the defense is neutral, it's really, really tough to beat, whether it's man or zone. I think a couple other things that you could do. I know we've talked about like distorting zones on here. We've talked about getting the ball in the middle. We've talked about pass fakes and shooting gaps. But I think another thing that they could do, and this is the advantage only having one game this week, is you could really screen the zone as well. Whether it's like screening off the ball or screening the ball, and just trying to get some like 2-on-1 opportunities where you're putting the defense in a situation where they got to make a decision. And that's a nice thing about having a week, is that's going to give you some opportunities to get some of that stuff put in.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on from Class A. If Angie's able to join us, I'll interrupt the programming and bring her on. But right now, we're going to go ahead and shift attention to 2A. You have Brownstown Central taking on Bishop Luers. Joining us now are Lapel coach Zach Newby, Eastern Hancock coach Shari Doud, both joining us. They both saw both of our 2A finalists up close and personal last week. But how are you guys doing? It's good to have you on.
Hey guys, thanks. Good to see you too.
Hey, Shari.
Hi, Zach.
How's it going? Hey, Shari.
How's it going, Newby?
Good.
So as I try to organize these screens here, you both have standout players, Makenzie Cook and Zach, obviously Laniah Wills. I'll start with you, Zach, and Laniah Wills. How did you see her develop and grow this season? I mean, she just seemed to take her game to another level.
Yeah, her perimeter game grew a ton. She didn't shoot from the perimeter in volume as much as maybe I would have liked her to, and maybe she would have wanted to, but it's hard at our level. She doesn't really have to. So, we get in those games where she starts shooting threes and she's, not making shots. So it's so easy for her to just go to the post and score. So I think that, and her figuring out that she doesn't have to pass it when she rebounds. She can just rebound and push it with the dribble and dribble through people and go score. I think those were the two big things for me. And I think she improved defensively. She came in as a freshman and was lost. We play a lot of man, and she did not know how to guard people. She didn't know – she was decent on the ball but terrible off the ball. So her off-the-ball defense and communication grew a ton this year too.
And Shari, for you, obviously a transformational senior class that you're going to graduate there, and then Makenzie Cook as well, the freshman. I'll let you start just first with the seniors and what they've meant for you in that program.
Wow, do you have about an hour? No, I'm just those five are just a unique group that stayed together from elementary all the way through. And their leadership was it was crucial that we had on our team in our season. That helped get us to where we went, that helped get us to as far as we got in the tournament. I can't say enough about them. They're exceptional, not just on the court, but in academics as well. All 5 straight A students, very much respected by people in the school, teachers, coaches of other sports. And, I can't say enough about them. Like I said, the core group we had back this season was led by them. I mean, they were the leaders, and the younger underclassmen followed, and Makenzie Cook blended in well with them, and they allowed that to happen. A young freshman coming in, not necessarily stealing the show, but they knew the importance in the game that she brought. They knew what level she could take them to, and they were very accepting of that. So unique group. Hate to see them go. Hate to see a season like that end. Today at school was rough for all of them and for myself. Kind of almost a grieving process you go through after a good season like that. So can't say enough about them.
Zach, I'll let you have the floor with your seniors. I mean, the state championship or the run to Cambridge last year, get back to semi-state this year. I mean, that's again a transformational type of class in a year that could have been a little minor rebuild or retool after some of the kids you graduated the year before.
Yeah, for sure. After last year, I had a lot of people telling me they thought we'd be better this year. I wasn't one of those people that believed it. I knew I had some good seniors coming back, but it's hard to, as Shari knows, it's hard to do what we did and get that far back to back. There's just so much that goes into a season, staying healthy, keeping kids getting along, all that. And these seniors did that for us. And none of them, Maddie obviously was a big time player. He's going to go play after, but no one else really is. Annalee Stow is somebody who was huge for us, but just flew under the radar, just did the little things. Rosemary Likens was a big time middle school player. I mean, everybody said she was going to be the best player to ever play here. And I think she averaged like 2 points for her career. But she was a kid who never complained. She did the little things. She hit big shots for us. And then, Jocelyn Love transferred in last year as a junior and had to play JV. I mean, we had a really good team, and she just had to play JV. So, she only got 1 year of varsity basketball, and I asked her to start. And for, what she did for us, to get us, where we got. That group, it's hard to say goodbye to. As Shari knows, we were in school yesterday, so we got to grieve yesterday. But I think only about 3 of them were at school. So it's hard, but those kids were freshmen when we were 10 and 11, and so they know what it feels like to lose. And I told them, if you stick with me, continue to work. We'll do something special. And these last 2 years were super special, and I'm blessed to have, been able to coach them.
Zach, I can extend some empathy to you. 14 years ago, I ended my high school basketball career, and we lost to Fort Wayne Luers.
Yeah.
So I empathize with you. As we head into Saturday, just curious, give us the rundown on Luers after playing them.
I mean, they're big, and I knew they were big, but watching them on film, we prepared for that length and that size because we're not super big. Laniah's tall, but she's not a big. She's a wing. So when they walked in the gym, the auxiliary gym, to shoot around, I was like, holy cow, like this is going to be tough because even their 5'8" kids are just strong. So that alone was a little bit, to me, like, hey.
He's not sure what to say.
The size got to him.
Hey, their football team just won state, so if those girls are lifting with the same strength coaches, their football. Serious.
Sorry, Zach, you froze up there. You froze right as the yeah. What were you saying about their size?
Just their length of that zone. We couldn't ever get the ball reversed, unless we're doing it at the volleyball line, and I don't really have kids that can score from out there. So I really thought we could get it in the middle, and it was super difficult to do that as well. They played a great game. So I think with them, you got to get in transition, and we just couldn't really ever get it in transition. They rebound so well, those bigs. They just were not going to allow Laniah to get a rebound and push it out with the dribble.
Yeah. So their size is featured obviously with Addie, Shank, and Wareing, and what they can do in high-low and roll-rise action. But in the semi-state championship game, it was Annika Davis who scored 7 straight points at the end of the second quarter. Shank and Wareing got in foul trouble. They go to the bench, and that's when Annika Davis ignites this run for them too. So, talk about how their guards can also present problems for you as well with, for Brownstown or in your Lapel game.
Yeah, their guard play is good too. They're just so physical. It's just hard to get anything going because they're just in your face. And with that zone, sometimes they're playing at the 3-point line, but sometimes they're both picking you up at half court. And so you cannot fall asleep, and no one else can fall asleep. Your backside people got to be ready to step up. And then they run that press that I really didn't think would bother us. But, man, they just sprint from spot to spot, and they just never let you get in a rhythm. And those guards, they bring their best shooter off the bench. And so, when you got a kid like that's coming in that you got to try to find, and if the Davis girl gets it going from 3 too, she can fill it up. So they have no fear. For sure. They will attack you. They're not going to wait and see, what you're going to do. They're attacking you first.
Shari, on the other half of the bracket, then you have Brownstown Central. You guys had them in the second game of your semi-state. I think the word that you used was disciplined, and that's the word too that I believe Linton Stockton's coach used too when he was initially scouting them. What is it about them that makes them such a unique and difficult matchup? It's
several things. They don't possess a lot of size. They are pretty much equal size across the board. Several kids can shoot. We mentioned the word discipline. They are very disciplined and super patient. They'll work the ball 40, 50 seconds and get a wide open shot. And just because they've been patient enough, and unfortunately when we played them, they knocked down a lot of those. So they also rebound super hard. They're not, like I said, they're not a big team, but they crash the boards as hard as any team we played all year. At one point in time, I think they probably pulled 7 or 8 defensive boards before we could pull one offensive board in that amount of time. So their rebounding is phenomenal for their lack of size, I'll say. Super unselfish. They don't care who gets a shot. It's whoever gets a shot, who's ever open, as they work their offense, that person gets a shot. And so they, very, very equal. And then they can go to their bench. They had 3 people that they would shuffle in and out and didn't lose anything, didn't lose any ground. In fact, 2 of their 5 starters are the only ones that scored. The rest of scoring came from kids off the bench. So depth is huge for them. Top, I'll call that her last name, Top or Top. Number 12, you'll see. Yeah. She had 19 points. She had 5 threes against us. And she was, I really don't know their season stats because they didn't ever post them on Max Preps. But I'm assuming she shot the ball that well most of the year. So she was their go-to. I should say she was their standout player with a great committee around her. Like I said, those characteristics in one team make for a pretty good team. I don't know how they match up to Luers. Zach, you mentioned how their size. That will be something that bothers them. They're a zone team as well. Luers is, but also Brownstown Central is a zone team and very disciplined in it. And it doesn't look like, they don't pack it in, but they don't extend it out either. And it looks like something you'll be able to execute and score against, but somehow it puts you on your heels. And our girls were on their heels a lot. And when you're at that point in time, you don't get a lot of flow. Shots don't come in any flow action. So it did stymie our girls quite a bit. So they are hats off to their coach. It'll be interesting to see how they compete in the state finals. They bring a different kind of talent, I think, than Luers. So I'm not counting them out. In fact, I haven't seen Luers play. I wish we got to the point where I was going to be able to see him play, but I haven't seen him play. And so, don't be surprised if Brownstown Central comes away with that.
There are 2 specific matchups that I'm curious about. Kenzie Cook, because they kind of slowed her down after a super hot start, and then Ruby White, because she presents a little bit of that size and kind of that true post presence, who's been, such a big difference for you guys, it seems like, over the past couple of years. How do they defend those 2 and limit their effectiveness?
They did a really good job on Ruby White. They had someone behind her. If she was ever in the position to receive, they had someone in front of her, and they're physical. And so they were able to move her around a little bit, and we struggled to get her the ball. Even if they're undersized, it's always discouraging for a teammate to see, or maybe it allows them to think, I don't know if I can get that in there, and then they won't, don't try to throw it. And and then Kenzie Cook gets the same kind of attention. If she looks like she's in a scoring position, they're bringing somebody over on her. And the zone made it hard. We tried to punch the ball inside, but somehow they were able to not allow that to happen or make it look like it's not there to do. And so those two can't get it going from a scoring standpoint. We're going to have a tough time. Sammie Bolding is one we can count on as well. And she's had a situation where she hasn't been doubled much this year because so many teams have focused on Ruby and Kenzie. And so she had a pretty good tournament run from the perimeter. But it's nice to have 3 kids that average double figures. But Brownstown Central, they stuck it to us. And I think our leading scorer had 10 points. And from there it trailed off. So, I belly ached about the 2-game tournament in a semi-state. And I'll always believe, and Jimmy Howe would even agree with me on that kids shouldn't play 2 games in a day. I mean, even if we come away with a win Saturday, I feel bad for Brownstown Central, but I know you can't do anything about it. Of 8 games, only 2 teams won the second game that played the late game in the afternoon, 2 out of 8. And I don't know why it has to be like that. Sometimes I feel like I'm getting off topic, by the way, guys.
Oh, sometimes that's where I was going to go next.
Sometimes I feel like the IHSAA worries too much about fan support and what's convenient for them rather than worry about the kids who put in the work all year. And so, anyway, I know I got off topic on that, but that's Indiana.
No, I was going to ask both of you about that because, Zach, you've been through it. That's how you got to state last year. Shari, and then you both obviously experienced it this year. What are your thoughts on it, having gone through it? For both of you, Zach, I'll let you start, and just your opinions.
2023, me loved it. 2024, me didn't like it so much. I don't know. It's one of those things. I guess I know that I'm not going to be able to change it, and I know that's how it's always been, and I knew that's how it was going to be. I really wanted the early game. because I know that, the longer we get to rest, the better. But it's hard trying to plan. I felt that last year with semi-state, playing at Logansport, it's an hour and 20 minutes away. Do you spend the night? Do you let them sleep in their own bed? What time are you going to have to leave? How early do you want to get there to shoot if you do stay? Or, if you win that first game, where are you going after? There's a lot to plan. And for kids, I do think that they're very routine-esque. They need routine, and that semi-state day gets you completely out of your routine.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really prepare for it. When regional was 2 games, we used to play in a holiday tournament that was 2 games in one day that was at Frankfurt. So we thought, somewhere about where we would play regional wise to prepare for it. But now, with semi-state, we don't do that anymore. So, I agree with Shari that I want it to be as successful for the kids as possible. Whatever is best for them, that's what we should do. I don't know how you solve it. I don't know if you do less sectionals and, just have more teams in each sectional and just less sectional champions, and you have play 1 game regional, 1 game semi-state. I
got an easy method for solving it. The 2 different days. Let's play first round, and I know there's travel involved. First round on a Friday night, the first 2 rounds. The next one, the championship on Saturday. I just feel like it needs to be 2 different days, and I think that's something that could happen. Take my game for instance, and I know it sounds like I'm a crybaby. Maybe I am, but I'm sure this has happened to other teams. But our game goes into overtime. Second game, our game goes into overtime, and I think I played 8 players. And of course, we all know 5 or 6 get the bulk of the minutes. And so we were in overtime. While we were in overtime, I was automatically thinking, wow, if we win this, we are going to be low on energy or gas or whatever you want to phrase it. And so it happened. We, in the evening rolls around, and, the girls' first quarter looked like my normal team. In the last 2 minutes of the second quarter, I could just tell something was not there. And at halftime, just to look on their face and just to see their body language in the locker room, I walked away from the locker room, looked at my assistant coaches and said, I think they're done. And second half was just a spiral. It was just it just spiraled all the way down. They just kept building a bigger and bigger lead on us. And by the last minute of the game, the girls they were done. And I hated that for them, because I really feel like on a normal game night, normal night of sleep and whatnot, it would be a whole different, not that I'm saying we would beat them, but it would have been a lot more entertaining, a lot more realistic. That, it is what it is. And like Zach said, I don't know if it'll ever change or how it might change, but I still think that there's something that can be done with the way that's set up.
I definitely saw it last year with Central Mobile. They were tired. They played the first game or the second game of the day, but they played against LCC, who was run and gun and trap and press you the whole game. And I think they started cramping in the second quarter. And as soon as that happened, I knew, like, hey, we're winning this thing. Like,
right.
And we prepared a lot of liquid IVs, a lot of bananas, a lot. I tried to prepare their bodies for it, but there's lots of things that come up. But I agree that 2 days you're going to get a better product for sure.
In the first game, sometimes they come off with an emotional win, like for instance our game, way it almost ended in regulation, and Cook finds her way to the basket with just a couple seconds left to score and tie it up again. You're down, you're up, you're cheering, you're disappointed, and so you come away with a win, and it was just such an emotional win. You just give a handful of hours for them to kind of come down from that, and ball's tipped again. We'll see if we can rally again. So it's a rough day.
Yeah.
From the kids' perspective too, and for you guys as coaches, it's like there's no time to enjoy or celebrate the wins either. You know, like you win that, or if Sheridan had pulled the upset of y'all, or if Zach, if your team had come back to beating Luers like that should be something that you deserve to celebrate. Same thing for a team like Bremen, which played Norwell and it didn't go well for them, but to get there in the first place and get their record of 500 was a huge deal. But nobody's going to remember that because they're the team that went out, won the morning game, cool, whatever. Then they went out and got smoked to the nightcap. Where at least, if you give them 24 hours to enjoy it, it, to me at least, makes a lot more sense. Not to mention, like you both said, like you're getting best on best, but nobody's at their best.
Hey, the IHSA just needs to make Sunday legal to play. Let's go with Sunday.
That's awesome, Shari. I know you need to run. Yeah. Zach, you cool answer one more?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks a lot, guys.
You, Shari.
Shari, congratulations on a great year.
Great year, Coach.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Congrats, Shari.
So, Zach, for you, as we wrap up that conversation, what would be your ideal fix to all this? Like, if you could design a state tournament, how would it look?
I mean, ideally, it would be 2 different days. I mean, that would be nice, but I know it's hard with trap. I don't know what that looks like. I think that if you're going to do 2 different days, it makes more sense to do 2 regional games because essentially they should be closer. I mean, that's not always. I mean, I know Woodland played their regional after us at Lapel, which that is not close to Lapel. That is not regional. So, I don't know. And the alignment, none of the alignments make sense to me. I mean, and our sectional is with us and Ellick, and then you throw in Westdell, who's by Muncie, Wapahani, who's by Muncie, Winchester, who's on the other side of Muncie, Monroe Central, who's on the other side. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, why we're in that sectional. So, I mean, I would like to see it 2 days. Like you said, last year we didn't celebrate after game 1. I mean, I felt like a jerk in the locker room afterwards because they were happy, and I'm telling them, the job's not finished. Like, you only did half the job. So, there is no celebrating after that first game because anything can happen in that championship game. Like I said, with Central Noble, they were super talented. I mean, they knocked off LCC, who was phenomenal, but if your body isn't working for you, then you're not going to be able to win.
Yeah. Zach, we appreciate you for stopping by, sir.
Absolutely.
Congratulations to you guys on a great season and
great season, Coach.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Zach. Congrats, man.
Again soon.
Yep. Keep plugging that Laniah Wills, Miss Basketball 2026.
Gotcha, Newby.
You got it.
It's easy, man. That's easy.
All right.
That was Lapel coach Zach Newby. We thank him and Shari Doud for joining us. We're going to go ahead and move. Actually,
hey, before you move on, Hank,
let's get some last two-way thoughts.
Yeah, it's like so. And again, Shari's taking a stance. I wasn't sure if she would. I mean, we all saw the quotes in the Indy Star the next day. Yes, I do subscribe and read sometimes.
God, I was typing it in the chat too.
But in the Eastern Hancock, in the Eastern Hancock Brownstown Central game, Eastern Hancock scored their 19th point with 5 minutes left in the second quarter. Okay, so let's just qualify that real quick. Shari's right. Like, they were humming and they were playing well. It was a Cook layup. She got by her defender. She laid it in. It was their 19th point. They had 3 free throws the rest of the way until they get their next field goal with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Okay, so again, 5 minutes left in the second quarter, 3 free throws, and then they get an O'Neal reverse layup with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They looked done. And now you bring in the beneficiary of no shot clock, and you can milk the game and shorten the game. And Brownstown Central had the beneficiary of live scout. I mean, there was a lot there. I feel really bad. I don't know that I would take that as hard of a stance as I did with Shari, but I did feel bad for those Eastern Hancock kids because I do think that in a vacuum, if they had played, it plays out as a different basketball game for sure.
Maybe Brownstown's really, really like they beat you down though. 42 points a game allowed. They only scored 49, but when you allow 42, they shoot 43%. I mean, they're a methodical team. They're a solid team. They beat a really good Linton Stockton team to get here. So we don't want it's important to qualify that statement always. Is that taking nothing away from Brownstown Central? I mean, that's a damn good team over there. That said, the matchup with Luers is going to be really interesting because Brownstown Central does not have any size, really. They're a small team, and you can be disciplined, but you can't discipline size or whatever the saying is that you're supposed to say, So we'll see.
I like the Topi kid, though, the one that Shari was talking about. I mean, she reminded me a lot of Reagan Wilson. He's just, holding the follow-throughs, hanging the three fingers on the way back. They got a nice player named Klosterman, too, who also plays a little bit bigger than her guard position. I've always said, too, there's a difference between being big and having a big player. If those guards can play big, against Davis and Warner and some of the things that Luers are going to present to them in the backcourt, they do have a chance, but I do think they need to shoot the ball and handle the ball better. But Luers is tough. And I'm proud of that one too, guys. We kind of identified that on this podcast relatively early, I think, and we've been kind of on this Luers bandwagon. So they made us look less dumb.
We'll let Danny enjoy that until we get to Lake Central, and then we will dunk on Danny.
That's right.
We're gonna go ahead.
That's right.
Oh no, I got stories for you.
We're
gonna go ahead and move on to Class 3 now. We're gonna bring on Lawrence Norris, Stephen Thomas, Valparaiso's Candy Wilson, both 3A finalists. Gibson Southern and Norwell played such strong schedule that they actually played both Candy and Stephen's teams during the regular season. I had a chance to see Candy's team on Saturday at Semistate in LaPorte. Stephen's obviously been on the show before. He's also muted, just in case he tries to start talking there. But Candy, how are you? Candy might also be muted. I don't know why. Yeah, the sound didn't work. Is Steven talking?
What's up?
Hey.
Hank wants to bring you on, but he doesn't want you guys to talk. That's what it is.
This is my show now.
Can you hear me?
I can hear. Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, cool.
Candy, you may have to log out and relog in. Oh. Okay. Yeah, we can't hear it. Okay, so I'm going to take Candy off while she gets sorted. Steven's on because you played both Norwell and Gibson Southern. Both games went right down to the wire. Let you choose which team we start with, and we'll follow your lead, sir. We're going to let you run point on this one.
Let's just who we played first, Gibson Southern.
The two kids, Chloe Graham and Gabby Spink for them are obviously the standouts, but then Paige Schnoss, I think they kind of cited your game as the one where she really started to believe and started to turn that corner in terms of confidence. And, she's been phenomenal here in the state tournament.
Mm-hmm. So very talented, those two. Spink. And it was great because our schedule allowed us to see so many great players. And Graham and Spink, that was a fun game in Evansville. And that showcase with Coach Tyler down there at Evansville North. But the way they're able to shoot the basketball and the chemistry that they have together is another team that's just unmatched when it comes to that, how well they play together.
Danny, did you got one? Sorry. I was flipping.
No, so Chloe Graham and Gabby Spink. Against Scottsburg in the morning game, a semi-state, they had 30 and 27 respectively. They were fantastic in the championship game. But Paige Schnoss, again, leave it to me to ask a freshman question. You have quite the front line with Franklin and Thomas and Winston and Teague at Lawrence North. Talk about Paige Schnoss, because she is a big reason why they won, and talk about her development and kind of what you saw when you played them and preparing for them, and as you kind of hear about them through their postseason run here.
I might be nuts or crazy, and I think that goes with being, ready for the job. That all goes in as being a head coach, but we try to identify, the other teams, definitely two best players, and then who's that third wild card. You guys talk about that wild card, who's going to step up, and that's what Paige is for that team, and it's just got consistently better. One of those matchups where she's playing 4A basketball against us, and she's holding her own against Jemiah Thomas and Ashia Teague and Natalia Franklin. So just a kid that you could tell just has bought into her teammates, bought into her program, and has just consistently chopped wood and gotten better and better. One of the things that jumped out to me when we first played, how well she rebounds. but rebounds outside of her area too that create opportunities offensively, second chance points. And in their case, 3 balls from Spink and Graham. But no, that kid is. I've got the number. She's shooting 54% from field goal. Like you one of those ones that are just ready to step up for Gibson Southern to help their team do whatever's needed. You always want 3 as a coach. It's one of those things. If I get 3, 2, definitely 3, and she's become that 3 for them. That's made it really made an impact for them as they continue. But we as a coaching staff talked about this team, and then the next group that we'll talk about were Norwell. We had identified them as this was probably going to be 3A state championship quality teams early there in December.
It's a perfect transition as Candy Wilson is with us now too from Valparaiso. And let's talk about Norwell and just the schedule that they played was brutal. They had to go through both of you guys. They played Columbia City. They played Homestead. It seems like they've played everybody who's anybody in 4A. Candy, what were your takeaways from your game against Norwell?
They were so impressive, and if you take a look at that holiday tournament, the teams that were in that, it was incredible, and you would have never known they were 3A as opposed to 4A. Just their athleticism, their 3-point shooting. I believe they had 14 threes against us in that game, and it was just insane. It was insane, but their guard play is incredible. Again, the athleticism. So to see a team again at the 3A level that's skilled is really impressive.
Steven, what about you? I remember us talking. I think it was at your Christmas tournament. I think you talked about Norwell, and you're like, man, they're something else.
It's a real deal. Again, one of those saying their guard play. They don't make mistakes. They knock down shots when they're open, and they capitalize on all of your mistakes, right? Like they've had that 1-3-1 press that we've seen, night in and night out, and they do it very, very well on the defensive end. But then you go offensively, and they're just as skilled and just as athletic as any 4A team. So no, I was super excited to add those 2 games to our schedule, and then Candy with Valparaiso for us too. Like we got to run for our money all over the season. And Candy, I need to apologize to you. I missed your film exchange, and I'm so sorry for that. As I
That's okay.
Opportunity to help you guys prepare. I wanted to hit you with an email, but I knew I'd get to catch you live and say that personally. I do apologize for that.
That's all right. I had 20 of them, and I don't think I got through all of them, so we're okay. But thank you.
Gotcha.
I got a question for both of you guys. Like when you guys are putting your scouting reports together, and I'm sure Kennedy Filling and Gabby Spink are number 1 on the scout. Like, how are you trying to slow both of them down?
Whew. I tell you what, it's hard to slow them down. When we played them, it was a game of fast scoring in both directions. We're a transition team. They came down. We tried to, with our 1-3-1, you try and distort passes and get them to skip passing and hopefully intercept some. And they did such a great job moving the ball around and getting them to their shooters. So we just tried to slow them down, and it ended up being a game of just scoring with both teams back and forth. So it's going to be a tough team to slow down because they have multiple weapons.
Yep, absolutely. It's one of those saying we try to use our pressure to make teams – speed teams up and get them uncomfortable, and not with them. Their guard play, they were seasoned and ready for those things and be able to make those passes and out of our traps or out of our opportunities that we tried to put pressure on them. And then usually they make that extra pass, right? That one more that goes from a great shot to an excellent shot, the widest open shot, which then creates offensive rebound opportunities and different things for them to be able to make and just work and chop wood. I love saying chop wood all the time. I feel like you guys have picked up on that, but they do a great job of competing, right? They don't care who it is. This is our identity. This is our DNA. And we're going to impose our will on you, even when you think you're going to come in to impose your will on us.
Candy, I have a question for you specifically.
Sure.
Eric Thornton has, he's talked about how he's drawn a lot of the way he runs the 1-3-1 from Donna Buckley at Noblesville. You've prepared for Noblesville twice and coached against Donna Buckley's 1-3-1 and also Eric's version of it at Norwell. What can we look for in the state championship? What are the keys to attacking kind of the Donna Buckley or Thornton version of the 1-3-1? What are kind of the must do's for your team?
Well, you definitely, your passing, you can't make mistakes on it. You've got to overload. That's a big thing that breaks down the 1-3-1. If you can get a straight line, pass, that's a killer on it. If you don't distort the passes. So if they can get away, if they've got anybody that can get above it, and like I said, you got to move the ball quickly. Dribble splitting it is another great way of doing it. I've been doing this. I've been running it probably since 2003. So I've seen about every crazy thing you can see against it. And there is no exact, thing to do to it, but definitely distorting passes. And like I said, if you can get those dribble splits and that quick ball movement, and you have those outside shooters on top of it, and like he had just alluded to, the one more pass, that's a killer on it if you can knock it down. If you can't knock it down, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in trouble.
Yep. I think the best way is not to allow it to get set up, right? So that means your defensive end has to be really, really good. You get defensive stops, you get rebounds, you're able to play in transition, don't allow it to get set up. I mean, that's about the only real way. I mean, there's so many options and different things that people have tried to attack these for years now, right? Coaches running the 1-3-1s and doing different things. But the best way is a great defense. So you get stops, you're able to get out and defend, rebound, and run, right? That's what we try to preach and teach over here. And you don't allow those defensives to get set up in that way.
I think another advantage too of running a 1-3-1 is it as a coach, it cuts your playbook 90%.
Oh yes.
Down. You got all your man beaters, you got all your stuff against 2-3s, 3-2s. But in a 1-3-1, you might have a couple wrinkles, but for the most part, you're just relying on your habits. And I think that is a huge advantage defensively, is that you're taking teams out of what they want to do.
Yeah, they can't run their stuff against it most of the time. And you know what? If you run it well, it's very difficult to simulate it to play against somebody else. So if you're going to be playing against somebody that has it and you don't run it, to try and simulate that at your practice, you just can't.
Yeah,
so
yeah. I had Max Clark as Ashland Shade as my Ashland Shaded, and Max is just made about $8 million, number 3rd overall draft pick. And Ashland Shade was 10 times better than Max Clark was. Love you, Max, but Ashland Shade way better than Max.
Yep.
Yeah.
Steven, what about on the Gibson Southern side then? How are they built to contend with that Norwell press? How do you think that they'll fare?
Like I said, they do a great job too of making that one more pass. They take care of the basketball, so they being able to be familiar with it themselves and being able to run it. I think it only helps them out. They do a good job of using Paige in the post as well. So I think they'll be able to get that ball to her in the middle, and she makes great decisions and great passing, has a great skill set. So, I think they'll attack it in the same way as Candy and I are kind of trying to talk through it. And the bet, like we said, the best is being able to, as you see in these clips right here, knock down wide open and good looks and shots.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, if you look, Norwell, they're not just one of the best teams in 3A. They're one of the top teams in the state. Mm-hmm. They are the favorite. What are 2 or 3 things that you guys can identify that Gibson Southern needs to do in order to pull the upset and win this game?
Oh man, I can say this: they've got to stop their shooters. And again, I don't know, from what I had seen on tape, that's not an anomaly for them how they shot against us. They're incredible shooters, and if you don't get those stops on defense, that the points are going to bury you after a while.
Yeah, I think defensively, Gibson Southern has to hang their hat on getting one shot, one rebound, right? Get rebounds. Don't take that thing out of the net. Don't allow the Norwell to get set up in the 1-3-1. But then on the flip side of that, when they do, because it's a game, right? It's a game of runs. Baskets going to be made. When they do make baskets, you take care of the basketball. You execute against it. You take care of the ball, no turnovers, and then you make wide open looks. You create those looks by attacking gaps or straight line passes, whatever your preference are in taking care of that basketball. But when you get your looks, you got to knock them down.
As we start to transition now to Class 4A, Katie, let's talk about your team. You get to the semi-state semifinals on just a crazy finish to that regional championship game. Just your takeaways, I guess. Let's just start broadly. What were your takeaways from this team season and the run that y'all went on?
You know what? We beefed up our schedule this year, and we've just been trying to get, Valpo basketball on the map again here. And last year, we did that with having Lily come up as a freshman, and we had a great guard, Christian Bucata, that graduated last year too. And, when you can never have too many point guards. So that, coupled with our height the last couple of years, I had this past year, 4 girls that were over 6 foot, and that again is an anomaly. So tried to pair those two together, and we had a great season. The chemistry was incredible with these kids. Obviously, we fell short in our last game here. We had a lot of funky things going on in this game. I will say Noblesville did an incredible job defensively against us. They came out firing right away in that first quarter, and we kind of buried ourselves in the first quarter. And we the comfort level wasn't there. We had Becca Gert had the flu. That didn't help us very much, but they're a quality team. And when you get to that level and you're at the semi-state, you're not going to see teams that are going to make a whole lot of mistakes, and you got to play 4 quarters of basketball. And we didn't do that night. So again, they're a great team.
Were you expecting them to come out boxing one on Lily?
We've seen that so much this season. It wasn't something that was out of the possibilities. I mean, we've seen some crazy things. Boxing one, we had a triangle and 2 several times. So it wasn't something that we hadn't seen before. We just didn't counter a whole lot. We're used to getting offense off of our defense, and we didn't get a lot of that this game. And, that definitely tied us up a little bit. And we had some other kids step up and make points, but we just we let Tipner cut loose in that first quarter, and she single-handedly kind of destroyed us there in that first quarter.
Yeah, Hank alluded to the end of the Northridge game at the end of the regional to qualify for the semi-state.
Right.
Candy, can you take, and this is just, Save and I as coaches, we were kind of talking about it. They come out, I think that was an ATO, right? So you're down 1 with the ball, and they come out and extended 2-3 and kind of trap Lily. So can take us back to the timeout.
Sure.
What are you talking about? What's in it? Does Lily just make that play on her own, or is that something you addressed?
We knew they were going to come out and trap. That is something. Hold on, I apologize. The lights go out here automatically when you're still too long in my office. There we go.
You talk about Lily and Barnes and Valpo, and the lights get shot out. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Shoot that.
The lights go out. That's right. We knew there was going to be a trap. Obviously our first go if she sees something that's open, but we were looking at Cadence Clark a 3 off of a double screen from our post players, and then a slip from the post if it wasn't there. And if I remember correctly, Northridge, one of the girls tried to get through the screen, and they actually knocked their own player over, shoving the other one into it. And Cadence Clark did a great job seeing that open post on the opposite side and skipped it over to Becca, and she nailed it.
Just an unbelievable finish. Hey, I'm curious, Candy, with Lily Barnes, since I didn't get a chance to connect with you after the game, how did you see her elevate her game this year? She was playing a new position, right? She was battled through the offseason injury, and she just seemed unflappable.
Yeah, and again, she had Kristen Bucata last year that, was the point guard, and Lily still played point at different times, but Kristen was literally the point guard on the floor, and Lily was the off guard. She got a little bit more freedom this year. She had to, step in that role of handling the ball more on her own and calling out the offense, and kind of, she's got that ability to see the floor, and it slows down for her. She can see everything coming. We had quick sets that she could call herself and get into offense, but she's so good on her own reading things. She's just a natural at it. And she did a phenomenal job, especially, like I said, being out for 5 months and then to step in with teammates. We had Becca Gert that came back from an ACL that hadn't played all summer with us, and Cadence had been hurt. And then we had Kate Weber that came off of not being with us for 2 years because she was focusing on soccer. So we had that, some younger freshmen that kind of came together at the beginning of the season, and she was kind of the glue that pulled that all together.
Fantastic. We're going to bring on Stacy Mitchell now, coach of Warren Central, as we jump up now fully to Class 4A. That championship game is between Lake Central and Lawrence Central, the LC. So get all the jokes ready about I'm picking LC to win the game. If I had $1 for every time I've already heard that one, I'd be rich and be able to quit my job. Stacy, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you guys? How's everybody?
Good.
Doing well.
What's
It's great
going
to
on,
have you
Stacy?
on.
Thanks. I appreciate it. This is a great opportunity. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Let's start with the underdogs here. Let's start with Lake Central. And Candy, I'll start with you in this angle. I saw you in the stands. You stuck around for that championship game.
Oh, yeah.
Saturday night. And the girls alluded to it, too, the ones that I talked to today, Riley Malosnik and Laniah Bishop, and just kind of the camaraderie that everybody has up there in the region. If you could just talk to me about the importance for you to be there to witness that game.
You know, we were kind of down to the wire with them this year. We had a girl-boy doubleheader with them. We were both up for the conference championship this year, and we led that game all game, and then they came back and did a great job with about the last 3 minutes of that game and took it to us and ended up beating us in the last minute. They're kind of a sleeper team. They've got all the parts. They don't have a one star on the team, and which makes them, unique. You're not going to hone in on one person. They shot the ball just phenomenally this past weekend. They played with a chip on their shoulder, and I think it was around their holiday tournament. I watched them on TV with a couple of those games that they had at the Hall of Fame Classic, and I think they were still kind of finding themselves as a team, and they definitely played the other day with a lot of grit. They don't have a ton of size, but they play aggressive, and I thought Clayton did an incredible job in the post because Noblesville does have size, and they held their own with that. Their guard play is incredible. They have so many guards that can handle the ball and shoot it outside, and they controlled the tempo the other night. They were formidable on defense, and then they shot incredible shooting. That's the best I've seen shoot all season, and that in itself makes for a winning combination. So if they can bring that to the floor again, they're going to be pretty successful.
Candy, stay with Lake Central for a little bit. Talk about Joe Huppenthal. Down here, the last name, obviously, his kid brother Chris led Hamilton Southeastern to a state championship. But obviously in Indianapolis, I don't know that there's the proper appreciation for how good of a coach he is. Can you talk about him and what he's going to present for Lawrence Central, perhaps?
Sure, and he's got experience, in the boys program before coming to girls. I believe he was at South Bend, Washington with boys. One of my assistants, Ryan Varga, who's the South Bend, Washington coach years back at Boone Grove. He was my 5th grade coach, and then he worked his way up to helping with my high school team. And we ran plays from Joe's team when he was on it that we had taken there. So he's been around the game for a very, very long time, and he brings a lot to the table. You're not going to show him something he hasn't prepared for and that he hasn't had his kids prepared for. He's not that guy that is going to do a lot of the fluffy stuff on the side. He knows basketball well. He's an excellent coach, and he's going to spend hours and hours watching tape. He's going to know every single one of your plays and the name of them. Every time you look up, he's at the stands at one of your games, writing the plays down, and he's a guy that has just a ton of knowledge.
For all three of you, Lake Central is going to have a size disadvantage, as most teams do against Lawrence Central. How do you go about attacking that? How do you try and counteract the length and athleticism that Lawrence Central brings? Stacy, I'll start with you.
Well, you just want to continue to do what you always do. You don't talk to at least I don't talk to my girls about size differences and speed differences. You want them to you want your team to do what they normally do. You attack them as if they were, any other player. But coming from a coach's perspective, just thinking, you want to use a lot of ball fakes, shot fakes, make the defense move and shift, make their hands move up and down. And whenever you attack the basket, you want to go in to score, get into their bodies. But as far as just talking to the girls about it, my strategy is just to try to treat it just like any other team, because if you talk to them too much about height and speed and things of that nature, that kind of gets in their head.
Stephen, what about for you and Candy after?
Absolutely right. Like you try to use your spacing, you got to have the right spacing. You want to have, somebody that's behind the basketball to try to, take away, any opportunities for that, what I would call center fielder to read those passing lanes. A lot of ball fakes. It's one thing, like you said, you can't mimic it in practice. You don't want to really, because if you don't have it, you don't have those length and things like that, then you don't want to be counterproductive and psyching your girls out, like Coach Mitchell just said. You got to just trust what you do and do what you trust, and limit those air passes or lollipop passes, as I would like to call them, where they're just in the air, where that length and that speed can cover a lot of ground with that basketball's in the air. But you don't want to play too fast, but you want to attack at the same time. And and like Coach Mitchell said, get into those bodies and just eliminate as much open space by filling it with your presence before they're allowed to, with their length, their strength and athleticism.
I would say this time of year, a lot of it is confidence. And again, like they said, you don't want them thinking too much. You want them going in there and playing their game. Use what has gotten them here. Their shooting, driving and kicking, their athleticism. Everybody that's gotten to this point, they can get downstate. They're there for a reason. So if you overthink it too much and get too much strategy into it, sometimes that'll bite you. So I'm agreeing with them. Let them go in and play their game.
This is a question for anyone of you three that want to answer it. Obviously, we know how talented the Lampleys are. We know about Makenzie, how good she is, but it feels like Abdurki is the last couple games that have really come on lately. Like, could you talk about her as a player and just how she's really come on here the last couple games?
If Coach Mitchell, you can go ahead.
You go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah, I've got to know them with them being in the township. Especially Durkee. Like the rumors, they're not rumors; it's facts, right? That kid works. She's in the gym, she's putting up shots, and let's not we'd be remiss to not talk about the 2 ACLs, right? That kid has just got a grit and a toughness that I think she has the respect of everyone in that locker room, that when she speaks or slows the game down or does what she does, she is the tempo. She's the heartbeat, and no knock and no, shade, as the kids would say here at school, to anybody else in that program. They're very talented. The Lampleys are very, very talented. Anaya Makenzie, very, very talented. But when you have that commander in chief out there on the floor, the extension of the coach that's going to put people in the right spots and do the right things, and she's the one that's leading it, off the court with her work ethic, and all of those girls have seen going through rehab. Like, we know as coaches and former players ourselves, like, rehab is the worst. So to be able to see a kid go through 2, ACLs, and then come back and be able to play at the high level in which she is, and leading her team and I'm biased. I was a point guard, but in one of the most important positions on the court, to do that in the capacity that she's done that, she breathes life into that team. Every time you think that somebody's got them, we thought we had them a few times on the ropes, and she hits a half-court shot right before halftime, or she hits that kick-out 3 from an Anaya Makenzie or a Lola Lampley offensive rebound. Like, she just has been the answer to all of the questions that we try to create about that LC team, and she's done a phenomenal job.
Exactly. I mean, Coach Thomas, I couldn't have said it better myself. Only thing I would add to what you just said is I truly believe she's the glue to that team. Every team has players that may be your better players when it comes to scoring and rebounding and things that everybody see, that come up in the box score or come up in highlights. But somebody that runs the team, keeps the team together, is a glue. That's something that doesn't always show up, and she is definitely that. I've seen the definite big difference in their team from last year to this year, because, like you mentioned, she was injured last year. I actually got injured in the game against us, in which she was playing well, and that team was just different without her. With her out there, she's that glue that holds it all together and makes it all run.
Yeah, that was like the one thing that I noticed, like in the Center Grove game. It's the middle of the third quarter. Center Grove's up 9, and they're playing Center Grove basketball. It's defense, it's ball control, it's timely shots. Next thing you know, Bischoff goes out, and then Abdurki just like flips the switch and just dominates the last quarter and a half, and they end up winning by 13. I've just been really, really impressed with her.
Yeah, if I was watching correctly, Josh, it was an 11-2 run right after Bishop went out, and the whole momentum of that game for Center Grove, because they lost exactly what we're talking about in their point guard, right? Like their tempo setter, their conductor, their commander in chief, and getting them into operations of slowing things down. So, but definitely, yep, you saw that firsthand in the Center Grove game.
Yeah, I thought she hit the biggest shot too. I think there was 2 empty possessions that Center Grove had where they missed 2 threes by Anne and Bischoff, and then it was a Durkee that actually hit the shot that made it a 10-point game. But Stacey, you're the answer to a trivia question. You're actually the last coach. Lawrence Central has lost 3 games. I have bad feedback right now. Hank, take this one.
I don't know where you were going with it. Were you the last team to beat them?
No, well, Will Stow beat them, and then there were 3 losses in state. Will Stow has one of them. You have the other 2. So just a blanket question: how do you beat? No one's beat them. Like how do you beat them?
Well, I think the games for us have been about matchups, and those 2 victories we had over them, it was. Our matchup kind of worked well against their matchup against us. Last few years, we really haven't had a post player, but we've had some really good guards. One of them is Steven's niece, Sanaya Thomas. Really, really, really good guard. Thank you, Steven, for training her up. Really good point guard who started for us for 4 years, and she's now at UIndy playing. But we had Sanaya Thomas, we had Asia Baxter, and then we had Denia Jacobs, who transferred over, and then we had another young lady, actually who transferred from Lawrence North, Michaela Tucker. Really, really good shooters. So we had a lot of good shooting, a lot of good speed, a lot of good skill. And in those 2 games that we were able to be victorious over them, our speed, shooting, and skill, gave us that advantage over their height. Because when it comes down to playing basketball, we all know. If you can use speed and skill, you can take away a little bit of someone's advantage if they're a little bit bigger than you. And that's what kind of worked in our advantage that time, those 2 times.
Candy, I have one last question for you. Then I'll let you and Steven go, and then I wanted to connect with Stacey about his season. But to have a team like Lake Central from the region proper, I guess just for somebody who lives up there in northeastern or northwestern Indiana, what does it mean for you to see a team like that down here and representing in the state championship game?
It's neat for us. I mean, we know the competition up here. We had Crown Point a couple years ago that obviously won state, and so our conference is always tough. And I think sometimes that gets lost a little bit with some of the other teams that are considered north but aren't really north like we are north. So for us, it just kind of validates what we know our conference is and our competition up here. And we're excited to see them down there. If it couldn't be us, we're excited that it's them. So we're going to wish them the best. And I know our conference and our area is going to be cheering for them up here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Candy and Steven, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and provide insight. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks. Take care.
Yep, you guys.
All right, have a good one, guys. Thanks.
Take care.
Hi, Stacey.
Hey, how you doing?
How are you?
I'm good, man. Appreciate the opportunity again. I do.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about your season. I mean, the group of girls that you had, it similar to something I said earlier, but it felt like a potential retooling year for you guys. But you didn't necessarily skip that much of a beat. Like you won a ton of games. You hung with HSE down the stretch in the season. I saw you, obviously, the sectional game that you had against Tech. Just your assessment of the year.
I thought we had a really good year. I mean, this is the first year since I've been here that we didn't have like a ton of experience coming back. Every other year, I've always had 2 or 3 girls that had a lot of experience, and every other year, really, I've always had 2 or 3 girls that have been 2 and 3 year starters. What I mean is they've come in as freshmen and started. So this year was a year to where 60% of our starting lineup this year were on JV last year. So some of that was just a little bit of inexperience, but at the same time, they played hard, they played together, and they played fast. And probably as a team, not as good of a shooting team as we've had in the past, but they played every bit as hard. A lot of steals, forced a lot of turnovers. We were a team that really had to kind of score in transition because when it come to half court, we really didn't have a post player. Our post player, Talia Davidson, was every bit of 5'7.5", and I want to give her a lot of kudos. She sprained her ankle right before the season, and then spraining her ankle that caused her to have some hamstring damage. Because when you start overcompensating, and then with the hamstring damage, she hyperextended her knee. So she was an absolute warrior in the post for us at every bit of about 5'7.5". So I'm proud of what the girls were able to do this year. Sometimes we were Jekyll and Hyde, sometimes we were good, sometimes we were bad, but they showed up to play every game, and they played really hard and played fast. And when we were able to play fast, get turnovers, and make shots, we're kind of a tough team to beat.
Coach, one of the things I admire about your program is that you guys play one of the toughest schedules in the state. You guys play HSC, Center Grove, Jennings County, Lawrence Central, Lawrence North. Who's the toughest to prepare for? Like when you're getting ready to play them on a Tuesday or a Friday or a Saturday, and you're going in and you're putting your film work and your scouting reports together, like who do you feel is the toughest team to prepare for?
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. Just about anybody in our conference and anybody in our sectional. I mean, you're talking in our conference, you got Lawrence Central, Lawrence North, North Central. They're tough. Ben Davis, the way they play, they always have a lot of big, tough, athletic girls. That's tough. And then in our old conference, when we had Center Grove in there, Center Grove is always very tough. You can't leave out Pike. Pike is a basketball school. They always have girls that can really play and are athletic. And then you go and you play a team like Hamilton Southeastern. They normally have like 3 or 4 girls that can really handle the ball and they can really shoot. This year they played, kind of like a 5-out situation, and like where you're playing with 5 guards. So it's hard to just pinpoint one team because. And maybe that's a good thing for us because we play so many tough teams that you kind of get used to playing against people with talent, because we all know that coaching here in Indiana and basketball here in Indiana is really big. And I tell our girls all the time, no matter who we're playing, you better be tuned in. If not, you're gonna get your butt kicked, So, and I hate to not give you a specific answer, but I'll be honest with you, with the kind of schedule we play. Everybody's tough. I mean, to give you an example, we played North Central. When you look at their schedule on paper as far as wins and losses, you think, they had a bad year. That was a really, really, really good team. Okay, really good team. Coach Ramey is a state championship coach, and she's a really good coach. And you have to prepare for her. You have to be ready for that because if not, she's gonna come in, she's gonna take your socks off. So it's just this whole metropolitan area. Is really tough, and then when you go play teams right outside the metropolitan area like Hamilton Southeastern, they ready for you as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you again, Stacy, for popping on with us and talking a little shop with us. We appreciate it, and we'll hopefully have you on again soon.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Good
Thanks,
stuff.
Stacy.
Take care, sir.
See you, Coach.
All right.
All right, I was trying to buy a little time too, hoping that Angie hadn't be able to hop on. Nothing yet. She's been practicing, though. Somebody asked why we didn't have coaches on who the teams were playing instead of the ones we thought would be there specifically in 2A, and it's because they have bigger things to do than to pop on this midway hour with us.
Yeah. The last thing you're thinking about this week is, I think we're going to get on this podcast. No.
Whoa.
No offense to the podcast. I'm just saying you got other things you're thinking about.
Hey, listen, we're the show of record, and I think that's important. But no.
Hey, and listen, Hank, I know you were giving me a hard time earlier about my pronunciation, but if you go to the document that you sent me,
filling.
The phonetic spelling says filling.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of Kennedy Filling, I'm going to have a story on Kennedy Filling this week. Tomorrow is going to be for Layla Abdurraqib. Whatever the day after tomorrow is going to be class-by-class previews with quotes from all the coaches. So I did get to talk to the coaches themselves. And then Friday will be a column, I think, on Lake Central, and we'll have our picks and our video and all that. So we have a lot more to come from there. But again, thank you to everybody who's able to join us, especially Marquette Catholic's coach Katie Collignon. That was really awesome for her to pop on with us. The Central Time Zone thing helped out, and who knows, maybe things will come together if we hear from Angie. Maybe Danny, Josh, and I, or whoever, Danny and I can jump on with her on a podcast and do what we did last week. So I'd be really interested to hear her thoughts on some of the pieces they have, and I want to hear her reaction to Danny describing it as a amoeba zone. I want those on a purple shirt.
Yeah.
But
Hey,
yeah,
a little quick thing on so is the podcast official pronunciation now filling?
yeah, it is filling. They sent pronunciation guides, by the way.
Ooh,
Just
got it.
amazing.
I did my homework. You two
did.
did not.
So
Okay.
so
let's-
Kennedy-
We watched it on TV first, and that's where
Yeah.
they said it. Go ahead.
Well,
Danny.
yeah. Listen, there's a lot of people that I owe apologies to. She's one of them because I was pronouncing it Felling all year. At least we've talked about her.
Well,
But
I heard it on TV, so that was I set you up for failure.
well, she got box and one in the Bremen game. By the way, they were up 42-4 at one point in time in the Bremen game. She got box and one, and Feast comes out and hits 3 threes like before Felling even touches the basketball, which is crazy. And she had 30 in the morning game, gets box and one. Feast goes off for 3 threes in the box and one. They switch to a 2-3, and then I think she hits the next 3 threes. Like they're a wagon, man. They're an absolute
They're
wagon.
tough.
Like Norwell's going to be so fun to watch on Saturday.
And I think too, like just to piggyback off what Coach Stacy Mitchell said, I think what makes Indiana basketball so special is that the coaching is and you can see just from the coaches that we bring on this podcast, like the coaching is at such a high level. Like every night when you show up, like you better be prepared, otherwise you're going to get embarrassed. And I think if you look at the coaches that we brought on this pod, and obviously the coaches that are coaching this week for a state championship, I mean the coaching is so high level. I think that's really what makes Indiana basketball special, on top of all the talented players, obviously.
And it was fun too today because it's like speed dating. Josh, you were part of it where you just go table by table by table, and interview, and you ask the same stupid questions like, "So you pretty happy to be here?
Yeah.
Good season, huh?"
Yeah. The funny part was about that. No, I was just gonna say, like the funny thing for us was I remember I don't know, it was like the 10th or 11th guy that came through, and he's like, "What about Ashlyn Shade?" Well, and I think at one point I said, "Who's that?" Yes, I heard it like 18 straight times. Who's that?
Oh my god!
I thought it was funny. I don't think they thought it was funny, but
I'm sure he didn't. I enjoyed it. But yeah, no. In all seriousness, like, well, and two. All right, sorry, I'll pause on this. But yeah, that's like the other thing too. It's just like half the people there, myself included. Sometimes this year was different because of this show. It's a lot of like basic, like, so tell me about your team because I haven't seen you all year, that sort of thing. And obviously, I haven't seen a lot of these teams this year, but at least through this show, have gotten a chance to research them and learn some things about them, which has helped a ton. Just, going in with a base of knowledge and able to ask more pointed questions. But getting back to my original point, you could tell even then in those basic questions in that speed dating style, just the level of coaching and just, how they get those kids up and just how they address different matchups, like how you try to stop Laniah Wills at Lapel, how you address the weapons that Eastern Hancock brings, for instance. And then, in Class A, just how much of a difference one player can make for Lanesville. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
And just
I mean, look at Brownstown Central. They were unranked, and they upset, I think, Austin and Eastern Hancock. Like,
Yep.
I mean, that just shows you just how high level the coaching and the play is here in the state of Indiana.
And not for nothing, I'm gonna pick Bishop Luers. Spoiler, and that matchup on paper looks like a bad matchup on paper, but I wouldn't put it past Brownstown Central to pull the upset. And I think that's gonna be a good game. I think I ranked that one second behind the 3A final, just in terms of like my excitement for it, because it's just such a good looking game.
Well, and same thing with Gibson Southern. Like, I know Norwell is the clear favorite. I mean, but I think Coach Stephen Thomas said it really well. He goes, if you have 3 big time players, you always got a chance. And Gibson Southern certainly does.
See, I think that one's pretty dang near a toss up. Like maybe a slight edge to Norwell, but I think it's a toss up. Where do you land on that, Danny?
I think Norwell is probably entering it as the on paper favorite, But I think that's exactly where Gibson Southern wants to be. And if I could construct a basketball team to play against the 1-3-1 and to have the length to close out on Felling and Feast and those shooters, it would look a lot like Gibson Southern. The other thing too, Josh had mentioned it about how, or maybe it was Josh, maybe it was one of the high school coaches, but how you have to beat the zone up the floor. To beat the zone up the floor, like Spink has turned herself this season into a tremendous passer. Like she was throwing like over the shoulder rim runs. She was getting into the paint and kicking to open shooters. I think they're passing the ball really well. I think that's what you have to be able to do to attack that 1-3-1. But I think Norwell's is interesting. But both coaches, I think this is their first time to Cambridge for each of them, right? I mean, even Eric Thornton, who's got a tremendous resume, I think this is the first time there. So we'll see. I think it brings into a lot of those kind of abstract things that you have to kind of look at.
I think another thing that's fascinating too, and not to go into the weeds too much, but like if you notice a lot of these teams that are left, they're playing. It's a lot of zone.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I know, like, if we were nerding it up, we'd probably get 31 viewers if we took it this far. But I think that there's a lot to be said for that. Danny and I talk about this a lot. Like, when you are a man-to-man team, you got to spend a lot of time on action, like guarding certain actions, and it takes away from the offensive side of the ball or the player development side or the decision training side. So if you're a 1-3-1 team or you're like an amoeba, like a coach is saying, that gives you a lot more time to spend on skill and decision making. And I think, that's a common theme here. So if I'm a coach and I'm right there, like, maybe I won sectional this year, maybe I got a lot of girls coming back. I'm watching all of these games and I'm taking notes and maybe this is something that you can incorporate, in your program moving forward.
We need to get purple. Danny, do you need a dart or are you okay hanging out?
Oh, no. I mean, we've been going for 95 minutes. I just figured that we weren't going to go much longer.
Listen, you and I filled 2 hours once. I just wanted to talk briefly about the 4A final and just get some initial thoughts on that.
Yeah.
I've seen Lawrence Central recently. I saw them in sectional. I've seen Lake Central a few times this year. But I'll leave it up to you guys first as I roll some Lake Central highlights, just your takeaways and thoughts on that.
Go ahead, Danny.
I kind of have a baddie kind of statistic. So the Limestone Classic, which is Bedford North Lawrence's holiday tournament, if Lake Central were to pull the upset over Lawrence Central, it will be the third consecutive year that the loser of the Limestone Championship game will go on to win state.
That's
the other two being the Ashland Shade-led Noblesville team with Reagan Wilson and Meredith Tippner, coached by Donna Buckley. And then, of course, the Jeff Allen Bedford North Lawrence team with Carson Norman and Chloe Spreen. Lawrence Central played Lake Central in the Limestone and beat them by double digits. So that's my first big takeaway is I think Lawrence Central wins a lot of basketball games due to the sheer shock factor as to just how much ground they cover in that 1-3-1. I think there's going to be, I don't want to call it an advantage toward Lake Central, but it's definitely going to help that Joe's seen it. It's going to help that Wimberly's seen it. It's going to help that Malosnik knows how much time she has to get the shot off. Bishop knows exactly, how quick that first step is. Things like that I think can help equalize the playing field. So let's go back and watch that one because there's going to be some tendencies that we're going to learn about that. And I think that's a huge advantage for Lake Central, aside from just the cool statistic of losing that game and going on to potentially win it.
Yeah, I think, I mentioned on the top of the show that how we've disrespected Lake Central. Like we've just all year long, whenever we get in these matchups, we always go the other way. And Lake Central just time and time again, just keeps proving us wrong. I almost feel like if I take them now, then it's too late to get on the bus, on the bandwagon. They don't want us on the bandwagon. They want us to keep disrespecting them, to use it as motivation for the week. But I think the thing I notice about Lake Central is that they are a true team. Like no one averages more than like 7, 8, 9, 10 points a game. They share the ball. And as a coach, it makes it really difficult to game plan, because you can't overhelp, or you can't leave someone open, or you can't just focus on one or two players. Like, they all at any given night can show up. But the one thing I just keep thinking about with Lawrence Central is that they have not been beaten in the state of Indiana all year. And I think the length and the pace of play and just the players they have, and we mentioned Durkee earlier. Yeah, it's going to be really tough to beat Lawrence Central. And I think the one thing that Danny's mentioned a lot that Lawrence Central does not get enough credit for is they shoot the ball really well. And I think everyone, they look at the length, they look at the speed, they look at the pace, they look at the defense and the turnovers, but they also shoot it well. And I think that's really what sets them apart, is that they can beat you a lot of different ways.
One thing that was really impressive about Lake Central against Noblesville, and I wrote about this after the game, Danny. I don't know if you saw that, but it's on IndyStar.com if you want to check it out. But in all seriousness, was the way that they waited out Noblesville. Like, they'd get them in the half court. They beat the press because they have the athletes, and then they'd wait them out. And they just keep swinging around, make smart passes, and before you know it, a three-pointer opportunity pop up. So you have like a minute-long possession that ends with a three, and a three that's going down, and it was like, it was the perfect foil, and I feel like a dummy for not recognizing that beforehand, for not recognizing that Lake Central, if there's a team to beat Noblesville and that press and some of the different things they like to do defensively, that it was them. It was Lake Central. That said, and Huppenthal and I kind of talked about this today. It's just like the length that they bring makes it so much more difficult, to get that going and to attack it like that.
And it's hard to marvel with. It's hard to replicate it, man. I know, like, Coach Huppenthal is going to have them ready. I mean, he's going to have a game plan. They're going to come out and execute. But I think the thing that's really hard is replicating it in practice. And I'm sure he's doing his due diligence, but it's tough.
I think if they're going to get trapped, if Lawrence Central does decide that they want to push you up against the timeline and trap you, they're going to commit two defenders, which means that they're going to have somebody open. So Captain Obvious over here will tell you that you have to be able to handle that trap. But what's unique, I think, about Lake Central is when you watch them on stream this year, it's always somebody different. So, against Noblesville, Krieger was the one who hit 3 first-half threes. In the big run against South Bend, Washington in the second half, Anaya Bishop had 2 threes. Malosnik had the big 4-point play, which ignited that run. There's been lots of times where Vanessa Wimberly has been the best player on the floor. I mean, a lot of times. Yeah. And, they're constructed like a team that would ordinarily say, hey, this team's going to win the state championship. They have their defensive stoppers, and Anaya Bishop. And Nadia Clayton was great against Meredith Tittner. Just great against her. She was fantastic. So it's always somebody different. And so naturally I say, well, if they're all humming, like, goodness, they could be the wagon that kind of takes them down. So I think that'll be interesting. But I think Lake Central's big charge is going to be handling that first trap and then making sure the ball finds whoever it is that they have going. And that's on Joe, and that's on the rest of their teammates.
This is going to be the biggest key of the game, in my opinion. And you don't really have a stat for this. Like, it's not like you're going to be able to see this in a box score. But if Lake Central does not get their passes deflected, they got a good chance.
I agree.
If they're getting their passes deflected, Lawrence Central is going to win the game probably by double figures. So that's just something to keep an eye on. Like, early in that first quarter. If Lake Central is not getting their passes deflected, they'll have a good chance.
Well, it's different. Thornton and Buckley run it differently than Lampley does. They'll even sometimes run kind of a 2-2-1 half court, but in that 1-3-1, they push that second line way up against you. So I think what's interesting is going to be, and I think it was Candy that mentioned it, is talking about like dribbling through it, and that is like day one. Don't do that against the zone, right? But when you have Vanessa Wimberly as your point guard and you can split zone, suddenly you're creating 5-on-3s if you can split the zone off the bounce. So I know that's a scary thing, but Vanessa Wimberly does have the game and does have the quickness and does have the point guard prowess to be able to kind of cut through that first trap. If she's able to do that and throw strikes to Krieger and Malosnik and Bishop and they can put them on the net, that they could chase them out of that 1-3-1. Because I think Joe's going to check a man. And turn it into a man game in which, Candy was talking about how Joe's going to know every set, know every player tendency, and he's going to watch film. And I just feel like that's not something that a lot of coaches had done with Lawrence Central. They just focus on how to attack them, not necessarily how to stop them.
It two couple things. It feels similar to that Homestead game last Saturday, where it's like the mission for Lake Central will be to try to keep it a low-scoring game. The other LC will be wanting to blow it up a little bit. And then Nadia Clayton is a kid who doesn't get a lot of credit, as much credit as she deserves probably, because she hasn't put up the offensive numbers, huge numbers lately. But, I mean, she shut down Maya Epps, and then she shut down Meredith Tipner. And it was unbelievable to watch. She was so physical against Tip. And then with Maya Epps, it was one of those things where she got her early, and I kind of think, that it impacted her late in the game too, where she was missing some shots here and there. And I think that's a large credit to Clayton and the job she did just wearing her down.
Yeah. Lake Central's superpower is that they don't care who gets the credit. They just want to win. Because I think if you look at some of these numbers, if they play for other teams, they'd be averaging 14, 15, 16 points a game. But they sacrifice for each other because all that matters to them is winning. So when you look at a lot of these numbers, you're like, oh, this so-and-so only averages 9 points a game. No, they can go get theirs. That's just how they play. They play together as a team.
Shout out to Riley Malosnik, who reads our picks. And actually, everybody at Lake Central seems like is very keenly aware of their picks and who's picking.
I love it. Them. Well, listen, hey, we're going to pick against you again.
I was instructed.
Riley Malosnik's dad, Dave Malosnik, by the way, was the head coach of the boys program and led him to state too. So it's just like some serious bloodlines with Riley.
That was something
first time I ever brought her name up on this podcast, I think I said that there was some stuff to her, and it's just subbing on a different word. I mean, I love that kid, man. I'm happy that she gets this stage to play on because she deserves it. She's a fun kid to watch.
That'll be something I allude to in the story Friday, assuming that I get to write it. It's a week. But, she talked about that, about getting to see your dad play or coach in this championship game and just how important it was. And it's cool with them because, Josh, you and I were talking about this on the phone, just like that respect factor and that chip on their shoulder and how much of a part of their identity that is, both geographically and just as their team. And it's cool how they've used that in such a positive way. And
I love it because, and Hank, that video that you shared, that was from like a holiday tournament, right? Yeah. So it's like they've had this chip on their shoulder for months. So don't, whatever you're doing, do not change it.
Yeah. No, they're a fun team to cover, fun team to be around. Good group of kids. Joe's awesome too. Everybody is. It was cool today getting to meet everybody. But yeah, I'd say, oh my God, an hour and 46 minute show. So I guess we'll call
this
it a show.
This is the avatar of podcasts. We're going for 3.5 hours.
Killers of the Flower Moon got nothing on us. We're the Martin Scorsese of podcasters. 1 hour and 45 minutes. Tomorrow's pick show will be decidedly shorter. But for Danny, for Josh, for Courtney, we thank everybody for watching. We thank everybody for joining us again. If for whatever reason you skipped right to the end to MF us, it's because Angie Hitton was not on as promised because she's practicing. And the reason we had the coaches on again were because, they're practicing. And despite Danny's celebrity, Josh's pedigree, and my whatever I bring to the table, there are more important things in this stupid show, which I love. But we thank you all so much for watching. We'll be back with picks to pissing people off tomorrow, and we'll talk to you again soon.
See you guys.